what do you love about Chicago?
What I love about my neighborhood, which is Rogers Park, I am not a big traveler. I am not a big, uh, you know, go somewhere just to be there kind of person. And because I live in one of the most diverse areas of the country, uh, I really don't feel like I'm missing anything. I can literally experience any part of the world that I want within a two neighborhood radius of where I live. And that's something that you can only say about a couple of other places in a couple of other cities. And that is something that I will forever love about the far north side and about my part of Chicago.
You're listening to Notes from Chicago with Ashley Phillips. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode from Notes from Chicago. I am so excited about today's guest because this person was one of the first people on my guest list when my producer and I were coming up with the first guest for the podcast. The guest is Stephanie Skora, the co-founder, creator, and maintainer forever and ever, maybe, of Girl, I Guess, Chicago's preeminent progressive voter guide. Thanks so much for coming, Stephanie.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Let's get into Girl, I Guess. I want to hear how you describe it, how you would just describe it to someone who'd never heard of it before.
Yeah, we are a progressive voter guide that meets people where they're at in politics and tries to tell an independent, honest story about every election on the ballot, or every race on the ballot. Mm-hmm. And we cover every competitive race in Cook County. And we are read by 6% of the Illinois electorate, over 100,000 people in 2024.
That's awesome. And that makes it the biggest independent voter guide?
That, as far as I know, Girl, I Guess, is the largest independent voter guide in the nation. Now, New York or LA may have had something for their recent election where by scale they could, do way less and get way more readers, which I would love that for them, just because they got 5 times as many people living there. But yes, as far as I know, Girl, I Guess is it.
When you're looking across the landscape and there are voter guides out there, newspapers, love them or hate them, will regularly, they have their own editorial boards, will, have their recommendations that they make about candidates during elections. What made you feel like there needs to be something else, there needs to be another option or another source of information for people?
Sure. Well, the interesting thing about newspapers is they don't really do that anymore. The only endorsing newspaper left is the Tribune, because all the other ones have gone nonprofit, which is important for them to survive. But nonprofits, unless they have a specific kind of tax-exempt designation, cannot make political endorsements, newspapers or otherwise. So, whereas we used to have several endorsing newspapers in the city of Chicago, now we just have the Tribune. And the Tribune doesn't even do it.
Yeah, and sometimes won't. Yeah,
sometimes won't do it anymore because they're part of Chicago Public Media, which is a nonprofit. So the guy really started in 2018. My friend Ellen put out a call for somebody who was interested in doing a progressive voter guide for leftists and other disgruntled weirdos who didn't want to do the work of voting but who really needed to vote. Yeah. And I, being a nerd and having done stuff like this in the past, said, yes, absolutely, sign me up. And so we wrote our first edition, Steph and Elle's Excellent Voter Guide, for the 2018 primary. And we wrote it basically just for our friends in the grassroots leftist organizing world. A bunch of communists and anarchists and pissed off socialists who thought that voting was validating settler colonialism and all that. And we said, sure, yeah, fine. Show up and vote. We'll do the work for you, and we'll tell you what to do, so you don't have to feel bad about doing your civic duty. And they liked it, so they asked us to write another one for November, and that one really blew up. Now the city is stuck with us. Ellen retired after the 2019 municipal. She was a politics journalist at the time, so was just eating, breathing, and sleeping the 2019 municipal election, which is a bad one to eat, breathe, and sleep. It was a carcinogenic one, it was. So Ellen said absolutely not, and I did the runoff one by myself and wrote it solo until the 2024 primary when I brought my friend Reagan Draper on as a new co-writer.
When did you know that you had something that, you said you started it for your friends or groups of friends. When did you know you had something a little bit more than that?
Well, it was really that 2018 general election when the guide went viral locally on social media, and we got invited to be on WBEZ. The Sun-Times covered us, which is the last time a traditional newspaper talked about us, which I think is really funny. But folks just paid attention and kept paying attention and kept demanding more and wanting more and more resources. And the reason for that is really there's three kinds of voter guides. One is a list of names. And, it's just like the Democratic Party palm card, or perhaps the Democratic Party full sheet of paper that you get in your mailbox. And it's a bunch of names and some picture of a person, usually Tony Preckwinkle, telling you who to vote for. The other one is, which is very common, a voter guide that lists all the candidates and tells you all the research about them, but doesn't make an endorsement. And that's what so many newspapers do now, is they do that, but they can't take that final step of making an endorsement. And then there's voter guides like Girl Like Ass, where we give you a list of names, we do all of the research, we make a specific endorsement, and we explain why we made it. And we look at all the different factors and are now deep enough in the political rumor mill where people are coming to us with stories about candidates that otherwise people would never discover. So we are trying to do our best citizen journalist impression and really fully inform voters ahead of each election, because an informed voter is a progressive voter. I really believe that the more information an individual has when they walk into that voting booth or roll into that voting booth, or however they're getting in there, they sit down on their couch, they're filling out their mail-in ballot, the more information that they have, the better choices they will make on that ballot, and the more they'll vote in alignment with their own interests.
How long does it take you to put together a guide?
Oh, God. Well, I've got it down to a science now. When I was doing it by myself, I'd write the whole thing in a weekend.
Wow.
Yeah, the 2023 municipal took me 5 days, because that was a really long one. With Reagan on board now, the process has changed a little bit, because I now we're both writing and then I have to edit. So we actually start very early. We started the first week of January, and if we started any later, we wouldn't have enough time before our publishing date, which is February 5th this year, although we're learning our lesson. We're going to wait until, because the Board of Elections changes the first day of early voting every single election. They put out a date in October, and my dumb ass thinks they're going to stick to it, and they never do. So we're changing that for November. We're going to put it out the first day of early voting, and we're not going to commit to a date until the Board of Elections does. We start a month early now, and we go back through, we write everything, and then we go back through after everything is written, and we check all the websites and all the candidate information again, because campaigns are getting later and later and later. Yeah. Some campaigns aren't even having their full information up when early voting starts in the beginning of February. They're often waiting until March, when it's open in the wards, when most people start early voting, because only weirdos and people who have already made their decision vote in the super site in the loop, which is fair and true. And also those voters deserve the basic respect of having full information available to them. But a lot of campaigns aren't doing that right now. So what I'm actually doing is I'm writing in my Golden Shrug races, or in which is our super endorsement, or in races where I already know what candidate I'm going to support because I've talked to them or I've followed them on social media and I know what the deal is. I will write the race, and I'll just leave gaps where I know their website is going to be updated, and I'll go back and finish that. But for some races, I can't even start because the candidate's information isn't up yet. And if I haven't been following the race very closely, then I don't have enough information to make a decision because the candidates haven't put it out there yet.
Yeah. You just mentioned your Golden Shrug.
Yes.
Your Golden Shrug.
Golden Shrug.
Tell me more about that.
I think it was the 2020 general. That was I consider the runoffs a separate guide. That was my third guide that I was doing solo. I realized after the 2020 primary there were some candidates that I was really excited about supporting. And then there were some candidates that were also running for office and happened to be better than the other person running against them.
Yeah.
And I wanted a way for voters to be able to distinguish between those kinds of candidates. Not every shrug is created equal. There are some candidates that are genuinely exciting. And there are some candidates that kind of suck, and they just suck the least. So the Golden Shrug was created to call out those candidates that are either uniquely worthy of support, somebody that I would be proud to vote for myself, or are candidates who are running in a race that is particularly important to win. And there's a perfect example is in this guide, we gave a Golden Shrug to County Board President Tony Preckwinkle. Tony is very progressive, has done a great job running the county, has been in politics for almost 80, 80 million years, closer to 40, but that's the same difference at this point. She has hundreds of skeletons in her closet and has made a lot of weird decisions that I don't necessarily agree with, and engages in sort of the general favor trading that exists in Cook County politics writ large. And the guy who's running against her is such a fascistic piece of shit that if Tony lost that election somehow, every life in Cook County would be completely ruined because this guy has no idea how to run the county board. So Tony is not a perfect candidate, and she's not a perfect person, and we don't demand perfection from every candidate, of course, but it is so important for the people of Cook County to retain her in this office that she got a Golden Shrug, because not only is she a progressive and one with a very long history of successfully running the county and managing it responsibly, but we cannot afford to lose her right now.
The primaries in March. What would you say to people, like there are some people who just completely tune out during primaries. What would you say to them about the importance of not doing that, particularly this time around?
Well, here's the thing, right? If you are a voter in the greater Chicagoland metropolitan area, if you're sitting out the primary, you're sitting out the election.
Yeah.
Your only vote that actually matters is in the primary for 98% of these races. The Democrats winning. And the Democrats winning every single time, and it's not going to be particularly close. And the elections that we have in November are for fun and for judges. And now, I guess, for school board, because that's happening now, too. But if you're sitting out the primary, you're not participating. The primary is your chance to choose your state representative. It's your chance to choose your county commissioner. It's your chance to choose your board of review member. It's your chance to choose which judges represent your subcircuit. It's your chance to choose every executive office on the state and county level. Because no Republican will ever win those races ever again if the political picture in Illinois stays anywhere near what it is today. So if you're waiting until a Republican is on the ballot to cast your vote, you've sat out the election. Your vote doesn't matter anymore. If you want a choice, vote in the primary.
Of all those offices, which do you think have the most, have the biggest impact on daily life in Chicago?
I'll tell you three. One is judges. Judges are the most important elected officials that we vote on, period. Any given person is several times more likely to interact with a judge that they have elected than they are to interact with any other elected official at any other level of government, no matter what happens in their life. Whether you get a traffic ticket, whether you are suing somebody or being sued, whether you are suing the government, whether you are the victim of a crime, or if you commit a crime, if your audience is into that. Yeah. If you get jury duty, right, you are going to be subject to the decisions of a judge who was elected by the voters. So judges are incredibly important. And we get 2 cracks at the apple for each judge. One when we elect them in the primaries, and another when they are up for retention. So judges are extremely important. The second I would actually say is the Cook County Board of Review. Everybody knows that property taxes are just sort of a problem. And The Board of Review are the folks who actually decide what your property taxes are. The assessor sets your property taxes and does all the math to send calculations and the bills to the treasurer, who then mails them out, and that's who we get the mail from. It's Maria Pappas, and you send the thing, and you pay your property taxes or you don't. But the Board of Review is actually who decides the amount, because if you appeal, it doesn't go to the assessor. It goes to the 3-member Board of Review, who is one of the most hilariously corrupt bodies in Cook County politics. And it's not, I mean, that's a high standard of corruption given the history of this county. And there is a huge history of giving tax breaks to wealthy corporations, to developers, to people who can afford the fanciest lawyers and the biggest campaign contributions. And that's why everyday people get fucked on our property taxes, because those costs, instead of being paid by the law firm that owns a skyscraper in the Loop or the multinational corporation that buys a campus, those costs are being passed on to you and me. And that affects you even if you're a renter, because those costs are being passed on to your landlord, and your landlord is jacking up the rent under the guise of affording their property taxes. Property taxes touch every single part of life on every single day. Even if you are a homeless person, right? The property taxes that the people around you are paying for the schools, they're paying for the sidewalks, they're paying for the streets, they're paying for everything. That's the general levy that funds every part of municipal life. So that's incredibly important. And from there, I would actually say, after judges and after the Board of Review, I would probably say the county board. Because the county board really is the testing ground for most legislation and sets the standard for the minimum acceptable treatment of people in the vast majority of the county. Your county commissioner matters. They do a lot more than handing out zoo passes and governing the forest preserve. And the county board's really sleepy, right? Folks don't think that a lot goes on there, and it can be a frustrating and not very exciting job sometimes, but it really, really matters, because county government touches every single part of your life, right? The county runs the forest preserves. The county allocates the budget for the courts and the sheriff and the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District and the assessor and all these other places. If the county board isn't functioning, you notice it really quickly. If the General Assembly isn't functioning, you notice it eventually. And if the City Council isn't functioning, well, wake me up when it starts. But if the county board breaks down, you notice it very, very, very quickly.
How would you describe the state of Chicago politics right now?
We are currently experiencing a devolution of political discourse in this city right now, where there's a lot of different things going on. First of all, we've got Republicans running as Democrats in these primaries because they've finally figured out they can't win.
Always.
But now they're really trying,
Yeah.
right? And we've got one that was victorious. Eileen O'Neill Burke, a proven Republican, won a primary against a progressive Democrat by like 1,200 votes because of Republican crossover in the 19th and 41st Ward, when there were coordinated Republican campaigns to pull Democratic ballots, vote only for her and not fill out the rest of the ballot, which is why on the maps of wards that left President blank on their 2024 ballot, you see that 41 and 19 are some of the highest, and it's not because they really care about Palestine, it's because they only voted for one office down ballot. So, we're having some problems. Those problems are not helped by Mayor Johnson's unfortunate tendencies to not be able to work well with others. Less so his tendencies than some particular members of his team, some Texan members of his team. It really trickles down into every level, right? We've got gridlock. We have frustration. We have a huge desire for transformational change in this city, but we don't seem to have a government that is capable of accomplishing it, because that government can't work with itself.
Yeah.
Right now, our politics in this city is at war with itself. We have two competing visions for the priorities of the city, and due to a number of factors, there's a lot of dishonesty going on the left and on the right in Chicago. There's a lot of just general craziness. And the right wing, the far right, and the fascists, they're taking advantage of that, right? They're coming into our city, and we're having to stand up and push them out, but our government is not effectively positioned to fight back against that. And so you see elected officials having to do those things on their own, which is both a blessing and a curse, right? I'd rather have a united front, and at the same time, something is better than nothing.
I'll say, yeah. Do you think, you talk about transformational change, do you think there are candidates in this upcoming primary who are capable of trying to, or who want to deliver that? Maybe that's a better...
I think every candidate says they want to deliver transformational change. I think really, transformational change is worth the box that it comes in. No individual elected official at any level can truly deliver transformational change, right? We're seeing that with Brandon Johnson, where his whole campaign was, let's fundamentally change the way that Chicago works, because for so long it's been set up to screw working people, and I'm going to be the one that fixes that. Well, he tried, and he's like 4 aldermen short of being able to accomplish that. So he didn't get to pass most of his agenda, and that's a problem, because now nothing's getting done. So, and we almost had a government shutdown for the first time in God knows how long in the city.
Yeah.
So it's about the holistic picture, right? The closest we get is the county board, and transformational change on the county board looks like a functioning county. We've actually already had that. We've been experiencing that in Cook County over the last 10 to 15 years, what transformational change looks like. We've gone from a completely non-functional, morally and fiscally bankrupt, ethical nightmare to a very well-oiled, functioning government where, there's some problems sometimes. Our property taxes were really late because somebody gave out a contract to a moron. But by and large, right, this is what transformational change looks like. The county works. You can get things from your commissioners. The offices work. They're not staffed with, somebody's brother's cousin. And that makes a huge difference, because with that, we're able to get things like county care and a functioning county health system. We're able to have real stormwater, infrastructure and drainage infrastructure. We're able to have conversations about property tax reform. We're able to start tackling these big picture issues. Whereas previously, the big picture issues that we were tackling was, do we have elected officials that do their jobs?
Have you ever felt pressure from candidates or readers to endorse someone in the guide?
Oh, sure. I mean, people actively campaign for my endorsement all the time. Just this morning, I received an email for somebody who is planning on running in 2028 and just really wanted to get ahead of the curve.
Oh my God.
And I will not be answering that email because, bless their heart and soul, absolutely not. I'm not going to start thinking about that election until the municipal ones are over. But no, people actively campaign for my endorsement. And, there is some degree of audience expectation, right? There are candidates that I think my audience expects me to endorse. And if I don't endorse them, I have to really explain why, and people will yell at me and be rude on social media and whatever, and I don't really care. But there is certainly an expectation, and I really value the guide's independence, which is why I'm not a member of any political organizations, and I never will be, because I don't want my opinion to be overly colored by the opinion of something that I happen to be a member of, because that's not fair to the people who rely upon my research and my advice. I don't want them to be getting my IPO's perspective. I want them to be getting my perspective. They didn't come to me from my IPO's perspective. So yes, there is quite a bit of pressure, and I think sometimes Um, there are consequences sometimes when I don't endorse the way that people expect. And also, I don't care, right? It's the vast majority of the people that have a problem with the way that I endorse and the opinions that I have are people that I wouldn't know from a hole in the wall if I walked past them on the street. And my rule is if I wouldn't come to you for advice, I sure as hell am not going to accept your criticism. Um, so, if there's somebody out there, and it's happening all the time, right? I made an endorsement in a state representative race this cycle because I did not think that one of the candidates was sufficiently independent from the groups that are supporting them, and also because they didn't have any policy ideas of their own, and one of their opponents was more energetic, more independent, and I liked them better as a candidate. Even though the other person was a very lovely person, is a great guy, and I have no problems with them personally. I endorsed this other candidate because I thought they were a better candidate for what I'm looking for. And the supporters of this other candidate have just been very upset and have tried to disparage, the candidate that I endorsed, and have been lobbying for me to change my mind. And people have a hard time taking no for an answer in politics, which is why I say I don't reconsider any of my Golden Shrug endorsements, because if I've made my mind up on that, you will not change it. Only the candidate that I have endorsed can change my mind if they do something egregious or, otherworldly stupid. Then in those instances I would reconsider, but I've never had to for a Golden Shrug. And you know what? Those other folks are free to vote for their candidate, right? Yeah. I think that's the thing is, yes, I have a large readership, and yes, I'm giving people advice on what I think they should do, but I'm certainly not holding a gun to their head and forcing them to vote the way that I want. They're free to do whatever they want to do, and if they disagree with me, they can. They don't have to vote for somebody just because I'm telling them that I think that that's the best choice. I encourage my readers, in fact, to make up their own minds.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and to use the guide as one source of information. And if they want to do exactly what I say, then God bless them. And if they don't want to do that, then great. That's how democracy is supposed to work.
Have you ever changed a guide after publishing it?
Oh, we change it constantly.
Okay.
The guide is a living document because it comes out so early. Our goal is that every single person that votes in every single election should have the opportunity to use the guide if they want to. And the first day of voting is at least a month ahead of the election, and a lot can happen. There are also just some things that it's not possible for us to find, or are very difficult for us to find, that do end up changing our minds.
Yeah.
So people will frequently come to us in the week after publication with new information about a candidate or a correction, or somebody who we said didn't have a website. They have a website, it just has terrible SEO. So we'll update it and we'll edit it constantly, and a bunch of races always get updates, and we keep everything in there. We just do a strike through if there's text that we're not using anymore. It's a living document. It really gets set in stone a couple of days before the election. But even then, there's been an instance where I've pulled an endorsement the night before an election.
Oh, wow.
Because a candidate, and that was after my digital palm card was out. And really the digital palm card goes out at earliest a week before the actual election, usually just a couple of days before. And that is really when it would take something quite massive to change an endorsement. But there has been one. And that was when a candidate ran a pro-cop poll, a progressive candidate, who was an incumbent, ran a pro-cop poll, sort of disparaging their opponent as like a defund the police person. Mm-hmm. And they didn't need to do that. They were going to beat this person anyway. Yeah. And they were going to beat them by a very comfortable margin. They didn't need to disparage a movement that was going on in their district and across the city and the nation at that time as something that, that candidate over there supports. And so somebody came to me with that information and they said, hey, this has happened. And I said, okay, well, can you prove it? And it took them 4 days, but they dug up a screenshot of the poll and they sent it to me the night before the election. And so at 11 p.m. on the night before the election, I pulled an endorsement and I endorsed the other candidate. And I said, this is why. and I'm holding this person accountable, they're still going to win. They don't care. But I won't stand by somebody who disparages a movement for no reason. If you're going to disparage a movement, you got to have a reason to do it. I certainly don't agree with every single grassroots everything. Sure. But you can't just fearmonger and say like, ooh, booga booga, defund the police. Like, that's not progressive. So it happens frequently. And usually in the low information races, an endorsement or two will change. We haven't had to change very many recently, and it often happens more in the municipal elections where there's things that are just so local that unless you live in the ward, you'd never have any idea.
Yeah.
But no, it changes all the time.
When will this guide come out?
February 5th. It will come out February 5th at 8 a.m. And it will keep getting edited up until probably Election Day.
All right. Where can people find it?
You can find the guide either on my Instagram at Stephanie Skora or at girliguess.com.
Now, my wrap-up question that I always ask as well. You said you've no need to travel outside of Rogers Park or nearby north side neighborhoods, far north neighborhoods. But when people come and visit you, from out of town,
yes,
where do you tell them to go?
Oh my God. So I do frequently leave Rogers Park. I just would never live anywhere else, but I visit the whole city. It depends on what they want. If they want, if they're looking for example, ramen, one of the best ramen places that I've ever had in the city. I cannot remember its name off the top of my head, but it's this wonderful little spot on Thorndale, couple of doors down from the Red Line, stop across from the laundromat. It's so good. I'm accidentally gatekeeping it because I don't remember the name. One of my favorite Mexican restaurants is Susupuato on Broadway and Granville in Edgewater. It is so good. The food is so flavorful. It's really just a wonderful little experience. The vibes are so nice in that restaurant. My favorite place in the city to go for, like, I take all my meetings here, is if I'm at work, I go to Kopi in Andersonville, which has disrespectfully good carrot cake. For dinners, I will go to Our Public House in Jarvis Square in Rogers Park. I love me some bar trivia. I go to Rogers Park Social for that. And for bagels, it is New York Bagel and Bialy in Lincolnwood. Yes, it is New York Bagel and Bialy in Lincolnwood. I will stand up for a Chicago Bagel Authority choice on a case-by-case basis. There are a lot of wonderful Jewish delis in the city, and nobody has figured out how to do it better than New York Bagel and Bialy. So good.
The only place to go in the Chicago area.
But it's the Lincolnwood one. Don't go to the Evanston or the Skokie one if you want a sandwich. Although I hear that they actually put out a little sandwich table there, and you can make your own, because so many people were going there wanting the sandwich, and they were just leaving. So they made the smart business decision, and they adapted the business. But yes, those are... if you want Desi food, Garib Nawaz is not just a meme, it's genuinely excellent. And I don't know, did you want more recommendations? I got them.
No, that's great. That's perfect. Whatever legitimately, authentically you tell people.
Oh, yeah. Southside, it's Strings in Hyde Park for ramen. There's a lovely Palestinian restaurant on 53rd, a few blocks, I think about 4 or 5 blocks down from the Metro, that is just wonderful. For pizza, so when you ask people, right, their favorite pizza in Chicago, it's always like a chain or a specific spot, and it's usually one of the big ones, like a name that everybody would recognize. And I get shit on every single time that I recommend this place, but it is so good, and the prices are so reasonable for the kind of pizza that it is, and they truly just have excellent food. It's Jimmy's Pizza Cafe in Lincoln Square. If you're looking for like a quick and dirty pizza, that is not the place to go. But if you're looking for just like a giant, really, really nice, a little bit elevated pizza, right? Like you want some mushrooms and some truffle, like you want a margarita pizza, you want something a little bit more specific than like just generic pizza. It is the best pizza that I have ever had in the city of Chicago for that kind of pizza. And I'm so sad that I live outside delivery range now.
And this is right by Wells Park, right? It's like right kid corner by Wells Park.
I always forget what the new location is. For years, they were on Lincoln, and I think Lincoln and like Foster, but they moved a couple of years ago into a larger space.
Yeah.
And for the life of me, I cannot remember where they are because in my brain, they're always just on that corner on Lincoln.
I think it's now across from Wells Park. And I'm just going to check this. But yeah, it's I've been there and it's great.
It's so good.
It's great.
Yeah, and it's not like, you're not going to get like a $10 pizza there, but it's, but the food is so good, and they truly have a kind of pizza for everybody, and it's really, really excellent food.
And it's cozy in there. It's like it's cute.
When I always get delivery, or pickup, and the pizzas are so huge, and the slices are massive, and it keeps really well, and it delivers really well, and it, like I said, this is not the like watch the game pizza. This is not the game night pizza necessarily, but it is the I want to have pizza, and I want to have like kind of nice pizza, but you don't want to go to some bullshit frou-frou restaurant. This is a real pizza place that serves real food. Like, it's a real Chicago pizza place, and it's really, really good.
Great. All right, Stephanie, this was awesome. Thanks so much for all those recommendations. And thank you for joining us and sharing all this information with us. We cannot wait to read the guide.
Can't wait to publish it.
Thank you for listening to Notes from Chicago. This podcast is edited and produced by Tanisha Blakely. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to Notes from Chicago on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts.